From being terrified of one of the NBA's legends to calling being dunked on by another player the most embarrassing moment of his career, Shaquille O'Neal has finally revealed the 3 players who dunked on him. And trust me, it's amazing. I mean, everyone, Shaq is a certified NBA legend. No one was even willing to try to dunk on the 7'1" monster who played 19 years in the NBA. But Big Shaq has now told us who his 3 biggest opponents were. In a recent interview, the 4-time league champion said that he remembered every detail of each of his 3 Grand Slam wins. He's always been super proud of never being dunked on. In 20 years, he's only been dunked on 3 times. When asked to name some of these athletes, he didn't hesitate for 1 second before answering. That's what true sportsmanship is. He named the legend Michael Jordan, Tim Perry, and Derek Coleman. While the first 2 names made sense, people were shocked when he named Perry. He baseline dunked the big player. O'Neal can trace all 3 of his fails to the early years of his NBA career. This is when he was still playing for the Orlando Magic. Let's take a deeper look into why he named these 3 players. Starting off with the legend Michael Jordan. In the 1990s, both athletes were in the Bulls. MJ made it crystal clear who was in charge. He was at the top of his game when Big Shaq joined the NBA. When they met for the first time, O'Neal was so impressed by Jordan that he called him the best of all time. But as time went on, Shaq calmed down and found his footing, and he was able to keep up with MJ. The 2 played each other for the first time in 1993. The reigning NBA champion Chicago Bulls were in Orlando to play the Magic. The Bulls won 112-106. MJ had 23 points, 8 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 steals, and 3 blocks. O'Neal had 19 points, 11 rebounds, 5 assists, and 8 turnovers. 10 times in the playoffs and 11 times in the regular season, they played each other a total of 21 times over the course of their careers. Jordan was 12-9 overall and 6-4 in the playoffs, but Diesel's team was the last to beat Jordan and the Bulls in the playoffs. The Magic beat the Bulls in the Eastern Conference semifinals of 1995. Thanks to O'Neal, the Orlando Magic made it all the way to the NBA Finals. But the Houston Rockets swept them. The next year, Jordan came back stronger than ever. This led to Shaq confessing that the NBA legend scared the pants off of him. Well, who wouldn't be scared of MJ? He literally invented the word legend. Speaking of legends, then there's Derek Coleman. Can you imagine someone dunking so hard on Big Shaq that it would make him call the incident the most embarrassing of his career? Shaq was one of the best players in NBA history, so it would be hard for his opponents to embarrass him while they were playing against him. But Coleman managed to do that. When he played for the Nets, he faced off with Diesel near the basket. Coleman was known for not backing down from a challenge. In the game against the New Jersey Nets, Coleman dunked on him in front of his parents. Didn't I tell you? Super embarrassing. Before this, he'd never been dunked on, and was super proud of it. But then Derek made an appearance and did so in front of Shaq's home crowd. Derek singled the big guy out. He dribbled once, twice, took a step back, sidestepped him, and made one of the best dunks ever. The big guy didn't even know that he had been slam dunked on until the ball hit him in the face. He even waved his finger at him. Then, O'Neal looked up at his parents in the stands and saw that they were pretty sad. But let's come to the most unexpected name. Shaq mentioning Tim Perry came as a big surprise for a lot of people. Even though he played for 13 years in the NBA and Liga ACB, he wasn't very legendary or even that good. In the first round of the 1988 NBA draft, he was picked up by the Phoenix Suns. During his NBA career, he averaged 6.8 points per game and 4.0 rebounds per game. The Suns had to trade Perry to the 76ers in 1992 because Perry wore Barkley's number 34, but his biggest strength lay in dunking. he took part in the NBA Slam Dunk Contest 3 times. In 1989, he came in 5th, and in 1993, he came in 7th. Even in 1995, he came in 5th again. Although there's no doubt that he's a great athlete, most people remember him for embarrassing himself rather than embarrassing Shaq. I'm talking about his 1995 dunk and miss. The 1990s weren't a good time for the 76ers and their fans, since there were bad draft picks and even worse coaches and players. From 1993 to 1996, the 76ers were all about Tim Perry. In exchange for Barkley, the Sixers got Perry as one of 3 players who weren't All-Stars. And the Temple kid did have hops. So in 1993 and 1995, he went to the Slam Dunk Contest. But in both situations, he was funny in a painful way. His attempt to dunk from the holy foul line was his most impressive miss. Perry had good vertical, but bad horizontal. So when he tried to dunk, he made a layup instead of touching the backboard of the basket. The league was so embarrassed by the attempt that they got rid of all video evidence, including any Spygate recordings. So people were pretty surprised to hear Shaq call him great. And most fans thought that his dunk on Shaq had more to do with luck than skill. But the big guy respects him, and we respect Big Shaq. If you happen to look up the video of him dunking on Shaq, you'd agree with most fans that the play was super cool. Now that all this is out of the way, I can't help but end on a good note for the big man. I can't do him like that. So I give you one of the best dunks in NBA history. Shaq's big revenge dunk. This dunk really does deserve to be called the most awesomely disrespectful dunk ever. This famous dunk happened in a game between the Lakers and the Knicks in 1999. Chris Dudley and Diesel didn't like each other very much because they both fouled a lot and played rough. When Dudley made a flagrant foul against Shaq before, the Lakers thought it was a cheap shot. Shaq got the ball in the low post and went for the basket, but he ran into Dudley on the way. The big guy did a move where he spun around, went hard for the slam, and pushed his foe down hard. This sent him flying. Dudley was pretty pissed off at the legend throwing the ball at him and calling him names. They ended up in a straight-up fist fight, which then led to technical fouls. Though, let me tell you one thing. Shaq won in the end. You can't help but agree that no one does it like Big Shaq. During his best years, he was one of the most feared players in the league. Plus, his modesty and humor are like cherries on top of a pretty huge cake. And we've fallen in love with him all over again because he has the courage to talk about the worst plays of his life. Well, that's all I have for the 3 NBA players who dunked on Shaq.